I've also worked, actually, I better not tell you the other industry that I've worked in, but you can link very closely to, the shops that I've been into and some of the shops that you've mentioned, and the shops that have a majority of men working behind the counter, or behind the chair, should I say. A lot of those shops as well have networks behind them. I've worked in
What do you mean,
industry.
Networks behind them? So we're not just talking about tax dodging here?
No.
What's the network?
Criminal networks,
right.
Yeah. Huge amounts.
Do you not think councils have an important role to play here? Because I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure you don't, you don't fill an empty unit. And let's say there was an empty unit near where I live, and I wanted to sell. I don't know. What do I want to sell? Pictures, paintings. Let's say. Yeah. I'm sure there's a very arduous process to prove who you are before you can sit in a shop and say, "Welcome to my business."
Yeah, sure. So the councils really need to look at it as well. I don't think we need sort of half a dozen vape shops in one high street. I don't think we need 12 barbers in one.
Do you think it's because they're desperate for money and the rates that go with it?
Again, affected me personally. My partner and I were looking at opening an up-class cafe, and the cafe is now turned into a vape shop. And the only reason I can think of this is because the amount of rent that was being asked for this unit was astronomical. They were asking for nearly £2,500 a month. How a vape shop can afford that as well, knowing what I know, how much they take a week, roughly.
So you would say the vape, in that instance, the vape shop is probably a cover for dealing?
I would imagine there's something going on behind the scenes there, yeah.
Really interesting. Thank you, Max, for your call. Max in Nuneaton. Seen a thing or two. Here's another text akin to what Lee was saying. It's not true, but there we go. Simon in Brighton says, we've been telling you for years about barbershop, vape shops, nail bars and car washes, but not one of you in the media wanted to talk about it. Brighton is full of them, and our Labour Council does nothing. Well, councils certainly do have questions to answer about it, but it just isn't true that the media hasn't been talking about it. Awfully sorry to break it to you, Simon. Andrew in Sutton. Hello, Andrew.
Yeah. Hi, Shelagh. What I want to say is that I observed one situation around North East London. I don't want to say precisely where it was.
It's fine, don't, yeah.
And I was so hungry that afternoon, and I decided to go into a Chinese restaurant there. Okay, they have takeaway and all that. And then I said, okay, I want to pay with my card. I said, no, we only take cash. And I said, that's really strange.
Well, that's the first alarm bell, isn't it?
Yes. Although they're very clean. It looks very clean, neat, everything. Just very strange.
Yes.
So I thought maybe it was because there was two young people there, and I now went the following day because I was doing some contract work around there. Went the following day, the same thing happened with their manager, and I thought it's very strange. And then also because I was walking very close to the high street in that area of northeast London, I literally could see activities on the street, people going in and out of some certain shops. And I noticed that some shops maybe only had maybe less than 10 people throughout the day going in. And you're wondering how they pay their bills.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense. I've always questioned that, even in some areas where I've lived in London.
And who runs it? Do you know who runs it? I don't want to name, but what kind of people are running it?
Well, I don't want to say the backgrounds where they come from, but human beings that actually run a normal shop. You understand me? But you have men mostly in those shops than women. You understand me? So you're wondering how they're sustaining themselves, because I could imagine heating and light or electricity will be very high. Because if you're opening almost 18 hours a day, then you must be paying a lot of bills and a lot of money for electricity. So how are you sustaining yourself when you have less than 10 or 20 people coming in?
Will you report them to the police? Because that's what this is my question. Will you? I mean, I might look a bit harder now. I mean, I see things popping up all over the place, and I'm not sure what they are half the time.
I think I would report them if there is a huge criminal activity, if there is crime a lot in that area.
But Yes, but you can't work that out. That's the difficulty, isn't it? It's the job of the police or the trading standards to go and find out how a place is run. And that shouldn't be difficult to find out. I mean, recently, less than 6 months ago now, I had an email from Companies House saying, you must, again, it's to stop things like money laundering and false identity and stuff. It said everybody now has to create a unique identity code that's just yours. And, it was arduous. I'm very bad at admin, so it was arduous. But I got there, I did it. And I can see the importance of it. I can see the importance of it. It shouldn't be as easy to do this as it clearly seems to be, because identity should be known and activities in your business should be known. Thank you, Andrew, for your call. Terry in Southgate. Hello, Terry.
Hi, Sheila. Yeah, everyone knows what's going on, it seems, and I'm sure that the government do as well, but they just don't seem to care about it.
Well, they're telling us today they care very much.
But, I'm literally, I'm sitting outside of a parade of shops. There are, in sight, 5 barber shops, and 2 or 3 of them, the guys are just mainly sitting around outside chatting with each other. So, I don't know, bear in mind, supposedly, I heard this, I think, on this channel, supposedly, HMRC gets audited every year, and it's failed the audit the last 26 years. That's HMRC.
Audited for what?
Well, to make sure that they're doing their job correctly. But they failed it. It's on record. You can look it up. They failed it the last 26 years in a row. So the fact that they have all of these organised crime, and that's what it is. That's the long and short of it. It's organised crime that are using these cake shops, Turkish barber shops. It's all run by the underworld. But I just don't understand why. They're only interested in the average working person, you and me, that pay our taxes. They're the ones they'll come after.
So whose is the biggest failing here? Is it councils? Is it government? Is it HMRC is an arm of government.
HMRC, government, border forces, all of them. It's not for us to. We don't live in that kind of communist state where it's for the local people to start, shopping these people in. It's plain and simple to see. Anyone.
But if I felt, this is the report I did years ago about it, despite what Lee thinks. If I thought I was looking at trafficked, vulnerable people in a nail bar, for example, I would report that.
Yeah, but it's not so much that. No, I don't think these guys are just from the ones I've seen. It's like North Africans and Turkish kind of looking guys. I don't think they're being used as slaves. They're just part of their system.
Yeah, well, some people, women in particular, can be trafficked very easily, all too easily. Thank you very much, Terry, for your call. Terry in Southgate. More of your calls and your texts on this in a few minutes, and I'll be joined by Emily Maitlis as well, who'll talk about Andy Burnham's candidacy in Makerfield, been announced by the Labour Party, and there are others that we know about too. You can watch us live on the LBC app, Global Player, and on YouTube. The time is 2:30. Let's get some headlines from Amelia Cox.
The Transport Secretary has revealed HS2 could cost close to £103 billion and may not fully open until 2039. It means the project will be more expensive than the Artemis 2 mission to send 4 astronauts to the moon earlier this year. Dozens of people and 20 companies could face criminal charges over the Grenfell Tower fire. The Met Police has confirmed that it will look to bring them before the tragedy's 10th anniversary in June next year. And Andy Burnham will be Labour's candidate for the Makerfield by-election. The current Mayor of Greater Manchester says people feel Westminster isn't working for them, and he is standing to change that. LBC weather, scattered heavy showers for many. These could also bring lightning and hail across England, Northern Ireland and southern Scotland, a high of 17 degrees.
This is LBC.
At John Lewis Money, we know your home is more than an address. It's the sunlight pouring in. Well, sometimes. The coffee on tap and the best spot on the sofa. It's why our home insurance is thoughtfully designed with 3 levels of flexible cover for the home you've created. Because when you notice the details, you notice the difference. Search John Lewis Money. Terms and exclusions apply. John Lewis Finance Limited is authorised for insurance distribution and credit broking by the Financial Conduct Authority.
Noticed a change in your hearing? Well, get a hearing check from Specsavers. Oh, not sure where to start? Well, we're very flexible. Book one online, on the phone, on your lunch break, on Saturdays, on the same day if you're lucky. Oh, you only miss the odd word. But what if the odd words you're missing are nice ones like love you, or important ones like duck? Oh, too expensive, is it? All right, we like you. We'll do it for nothing. For free hearing checks, should have gone to Specsavers.
At the third stroke, the time from BT will be 6 o'clock precisely.
Today in the UK, 100,000 people will call 999. 3,000 will say fire service. 465 will say, I think she's gone into labour. And 1 will say, the cat is stuck up a tree again. And every second, a BT employee will answer and connect those calls to the emergency services.
At the third stroke, the time from BT will be brilliant.
BT, behind brilliant things.
Donations to British Heart Foundation fund scientific research that can help save lives. People like Joe, who's pitching his next big business plan. Maria, who's sending out her wedding invitations. And Jack, who's just being a teenager again. Because when you donate, you fund more than just science. You help save lives. British Heart Foundation funds research that aims to cure inherited heart muscle diseases. But our work is not done. Donate now at bhf.org.uk and keep us beating.
Shelagh Fogarty on LBC. Text 84850.
Emily's here, Emily Maitlis, co-host of Global's podcast and news agents. You can watch our conversation live if you wish on at the LBC app, Global Player. I keep forgetting about Global Player, and on YouTube as well. Let's talk about this very pleasant and warm Labour Party tweet about Andy Burnham being their candidate in Makerfield. Congratulations, good luck. My gosh, that's a real recollections may vary moment, isn't it, for the Labour Party?
I mean, what else can he say?
Yeah,
frankly, what else can he say? He wants the party to do well. And if you've seen Andy Burnham's video that's kind of doing the rounds, with the Oasis soundtrack.
We can hear a bit, actually. Shall we hear a bit?
Then,
yeah.
let's
have a listen.
Some say this by-election is unnecessary. I say it's the most consequential of our lives. I don't take anything for granted, and I'm ready to accept the consequences of whatever choice people make.
Well, we need somebody that's one of the people, that's somebody that understands the common person. We need somebody like him for the next Prime Minister, because he will be, definitely.
What he's doing now, I think a lot of Manchester love him for that, you know what I mean?
Everything that he achieves in Manchester, it's time to take it to the rest of the country. Honestly, it's just what it needs.
I'm good. One of the things that made me most proud recently is someone saying on a doorstep, nice to see you. Andy's all right. He's for us. I am for us. All of us.
It's not a particularly slick video, which I think works to his advantage, because what you get, if you watch it in full, is just a bloke who's really comfortable in their own skin. And that was the thing that struck me. I haven't heard that ease for so long. And it's not about Labour or Reform. It's just about somebody who can walk around their own patch, who can feel recognised by people because he's been there, frankly, for so long, and who doesn't sort of leave you wincing when they say what their football club is, or what their pint is, or what, you know. He sort of seems to inhabit the world that he genuinely is. And that, I can't explain that, just it feels very different when you watch it. And we had on the newsagents today Neil Lawson, who's the co-founder of Compass, somebody who's tipped possibly for a job within a sort of, you know, Andy Burnham future sort of shaped government. Who knows? If that happened, he obviously, he would deny that, and he'd say there are plenty of steps between, you know, now and there. But he was the one who said, I think you should go and do this video. He had the concept of the video, send Andy Burnham out and said, just walk from there to there and see what happens. And I said, oh, come on, don't tell me all those people sort of magically appeared. And he said, well, obviously, you use the best clips, you don't use the terrible clips. But it was pretty organic. You know, people do know him around that area.
You don't use the clips of the busy woman going, no, not today, Andy, leave me alone.
Who are you? Yeah. So I guess, you know, but he was quite honest about the thing. And what we're trying to get to the bottom of, and there are several steps between sort of now, today, where he's just been declared as you say, the Labour candidate, and whatever happens over the course of the next 5 weeks and maybe 3 months of the summer, is the shape of things to come. So let's talk about the by-election first of all, because that's, you know, pretty much in our sightlines now. The tactical voting numbers are really interesting on this. So these are people who are not Labour supporters, who would not normally vote for Labour, who say they would vote for Burnham in this seat. 16% of current Tory voters, Conservatives, would vote Burnham. 6% of Reform voters would vote Burnham. 35% of Green, 46% of Lib Dems. And OK, that's just one seat and it's one race and it's one person. But it seems to speak to something that Neil was talking to us about, Neil Lawson, which is a more consensual type of politics. And I don't think we've had that or heard of that or seen it for ages. And he used the example of when, Andy Burnham was making a speech in Manchester and the person who introduced him is a Lib Dem, right? It's not about being Labour. At that point, it's about being Manchester. It's about pulling in the other parties. I remember, like a zillion years ago, when Andy Burnham was Health Secretary, hearing him say, we need to find a cross-party consensus on social care. I just want to solve the problem. I don't care about party politics. I want to get to the bottom of this. Of course, it never happened, right? And they never got the cross-party support. And look where we are with social care, 20 years on, absolutely nowhere. And so I think, if I'm honest, that's given me a bit of a kind of like
a political chill.
Well, sort of warm feeling. Yeah. I like the fact that things might get done. What I would say, I think that two things can both be true. I would also say that I'm feeling from some parts, and certainly from some of our listeners and some of our viewers, there is a queasiness to the speed at which we are all talking about this and maybe talking it up and imagining a future, and people are kind of going, what are you doing? Don't think that more political instability is going to generate a better economic outlook or a calmer country or, stop the frayed nerves, that you are actually creating this sort of slightly faster than you can breathe momentum of change.
And neither is making the same decisions that don't seem to be working. A good idea, is it?
That's the thing, right? So you're stuck with sort of both things. I don't feel I have a dog in this race particularly. I can totally hear people who say to me, just calm it down, just stop sort of, speeding this into a new kind of drama of change, and we must break and change, because that's not actually helping the economy at all.
Those tactical voting stats you just gave me are really interesting, because they reflect something that a guest we had on the programme from More in Common at the tail end of last week was telling us, that they had completely coincidentally done a deep dive into Makerfield, would you believe, before any of this happened, quite recently.
Amazing. Yeah.
And they found, particularly on Reform voters, because of course Reform did very well in the local elections there, in that area, that it was a very mobile electorate, and the guest I was speaking to felt it could travel to Burnham, and your figures there seem to bear that out.
I think the point about the Reform vote has always been, or has long been, it's about rejecting the status quo. Right, so you kick the people that are in power because you want to be the anti-establishment vote. And so if you're hurting, or if you feel there's injustice, or if you feel that you're forgotten, or if you feel you're left behind, or if you just feel angry, frankly, with whoever is in power, then you choose Reform because you think it's about breaking the system.
But you've just used language very similar to what Andy Burnham was saying yesterday.
Completely.
Which he's going to be the rebel candidate.
He wants to be the insurgent now, and he wants to be the I'm Manchester taking on Westminster. And if he can beat Reform at their own game, in other words, saying, oh no, you've been around for ages, in the form of, Farage and Brexit and all the kind of, recent turmoil that we've seen in this part of the world. I don't think I'll mention Brexit, but certainly Reform arguably are the establishment now, in the sense that this is what we're living with now. We are living in a post-Brexit land that they required.
They've announced their candidate as well in a campaign video for their new candidate, Robert Kenyon. He's a plumber. In the caption, they write, Makerfield was Andy Burnham's backup plan. For Robert Kenyon, it's his home. This battle will be David versus Goliath. Let's take a listen to some of it.
I was born in Makerfield. If I was elected, I'd be the first person born in the constituency.
Plumbers do very well, right? Gordon and Denton.
Great.
Everyone loves a plumber.
Yeah.
If I was the opposition, I'd be saying, don't let another plumber be taken out of the system, right? You'll never get a plumber in Makerfield.
Come and visit me.
Exactly. But I think it's probably quite a smart choice.
It is a smart choice, isn't it? And equally, they are going to come at, Reform are going to come at Burnham's time in office. You mentioned him as Health Secretary. That's just one example. But they will come at that, won't they?
Look, I mean, it's very easy to say this man who's portraying himself as an insurgent has been in the Blair government, has voted for the Iraq War, has worked under Brown, has done key jobs in office, and don't let him tell you he doesn't know Westminster or, he's never been part of the system. He was the system. And I guess that, of course, they have a point. You can't erase your history. I think Burnham's response to that would be, yes, I have worked pretty loyally for all the leaders that I have served because I believe that's the job of somebody in the cabinet.
He makes the manager-player analogy, doesn't he?
The manager-player, exactly, the football analogy. And then in Manchester, he's been his own person. And he's had that executive power, and he's, created somewhere along the lines a brand, right? Manchesterism. We don't know what Starmerism is. We don't really know what Raynerism. We don't know what Streetyism. We don't know any of that, but we kind of understand Manchesterism as this idea of, in their words, business-friendly socialism. In other words, you don't scare the horses, but you do still put, the people at the heart of the decisions you're making rather than the corporates.
And if you're an ordinary voter in Makerfield, and we've had some great calls from people who will be voting in that election, seeing just those two, obviously there'll be other candidates, but seeing those two candidates, they might say, well, hang on, why would I vote for a guy who wasn't born here, whose only real ambition in this town is to get into Westminster and try and become Prime Minister? Again, I would argue Burnham's probably got an answer for that as well, which would be not born there, grew up there, went to school there, sent my kids to the same school there, which is all in that video.
I think it's quite hard to make a case that he's not local. He literally points to the rugby fields that he played on.
And
the
is the mayor of Greater Manchester.
And he sent his kids, as you say that. I don't think people are going to be like, oh, show me the hospital ward, right?
Birtherism.
Exactly. Like, where's your certificate? I think people get that if you come from a place, you come from a place. But I also think, this is where it gets really interesting. There is a pride, isn't there, in feeling that you could be choosing your next Prime Minister, right? Again, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
And an anxiety. I had a caller last Friday who said she felt anxious about it.
And what? Why?
She just felt it was a
too
weight
much responsibility.
on her shoulder. Yeah.
It's like Sedgefield. The people of Sedgefield have never forgotten, for better or for worse, that they were the place that made Tony Blair.
Yeah.
Right? And I wonder if there is that sort of sense of, what a big step it is. This is a big by-election because let's just imagine, let's flip it for a moment. Yeah. If Robert Kenyon, born in Makerfield, plumber, takes the seat, that's the end. That's the end of Manchesterism or Burnhamism. It's all gone, right? And then presumably Keir Starmer kind of lives to fight another day, and that's
only just though. With Reform breathing down his neck,
right? Yeah.
Interesting times we live in. Thank you very much indeed. Have you got your train ticket booked yet to Makerfield?
We've got Luke Trill planning us a very nice, constituency visit.
Brilliant.
Yeah, exactly.
Look forward to it. Thanks very much, Emily, host of the News Agents, of course. And don't forget, the latest episode drops at 5:00 today. You can listen or watch, download it on our free Global Player app or the new LBC app. Back to your calls in a moment. It's 2:46.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
The Prime Minister, the Home Secretary and indeed the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police were all giving us assurances after that incident in North London that we would root out anti-Semitism. So what is to be made of a report of more than 100 accounts of abuse committed in schools by pupils and by teachers?
I was on a bus. There was a bunch of schoolgirls, and one of the schoolgirls said, Jew.
The Jewish community need to speak up more and say they are against what the IDF are doing.
There is an undertone here, and I'm hearing it quite a few times, that Jews might be fair game because they don't speak loud enough.
We hear globalise the Intifada or from the river to the sea, and people just dismiss it.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen